The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Greetings from Hove, England, and welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. I'm back home for the Christmas period, and because I'm best man at a wedding, putting the finishing touches to my best man speech. Hopefully it won't be a disaster. But we're also coming towards the end of 2015. You may have seen on richardparr.net that I've written a blog about some of the highlights of the year. I have actually forgotten one of them. I forgot to put that being at the Rugby World Cup, in particular the Japan versus South Africa match, was a real highlight for me. I'll be amending that blog. If you haven't seen it already, remember the website's richardparr.net. A lot of the top things which have happened to me this year already, including this fantastic podcast, The Best in the World. This week's guest is Ian Williams. He is a World Match Racing Tour sailing champion. He's won it 5 times. No one has done it more times than that. So Ian Williams really is the best in the world. I met him about 2, 3, 4 years ago at the Monsoon Cup, their finale of the World Match Racing Tour season. I was there covering it for Al Jazeera with my colleague Robin Adams. If you don't follow him on Twitter, follow him as well. Top guy. It's an interesting chat with Ian. We talk about a lot of different things. He was actually a lawyer before he became a sailor. So we talk about the different transferable skills from one profession to another. How sponsors can be appealed to sailing and how Ian has used his skills as a lawyer to attract sponsors into the sport. He also gives us some tips on adjusting to jet lag, advice to young sailors, and who his role models were in the sport. Really good chat with Ian Williams. And we begin the conversation asking him whether he has bought his Christmas gifts this year. Apparently he hasn't. And if you haven't, how about I give you an early Christmas present? How about I give you a 30-day free trial with Audible? Yes, they are the leading company when it comes to audiobooks, and I'm giving you a free audiobook download with Audible. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/best. That's audibletrial.com/best. Best in the world is obviously the reason it's best. And with that, you get a 30-day free trial, 1 free audiobook download. I'm giving it for you for free. Merry Christmas. Now let's get on to it. Let's get on to the interview with Ian Williams.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Ian Williams, welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. I'm going to start with a very, very important question. 1 week before Christmas, have you bought all of your presents?
No, give me worry. I thought you said it was going to be an easy question to start with. No, I have to say Christmas shopping isn't my forte. I'm more of a leave it to the last minute, put the pressure on, and then it's make decisions.
Is there anything at the top of your list that you would like?
Not really. I think my wife and I, we normally just buy each other practical presents. I think it's not going to ruin the surprise. I need to get her a washer dryer, so it's not very romantic, I'm afraid.
Well, it'll certainly be useful. So, looking back on 2015, what have you been most thankful for this year?
Well, I mean, from in a sporting context, obviously winning the Match Racing World Championship was a huge thing, and there's always an element of luck involved there. So in any sporting event, I think there is. So I guess we're thankful for that. My son was a year ago, so I probably got to mention that. That amazing thing, November the 20th last year, 2014, and it's been amazing seeing him grow up as well.
And what would you say would be your goals for 2016?
Try and clinch the sixth world title would be the first obvious goal. And then we obviously have a big change in format on the World Match Racing Tour. We're moving to the M32 catamaran. That's going to be a big challenge for me and for the team to convert into the new format.
What will be the main differences there, Ian?
Well, the boat is a different sort of boat to sail. It requires a slightly skill set in terms of the way that the boat's set up and the feeling on the boat, the way you sail it, and that impacts as well on the tactics, on the handling, and the positioning. So it very much it's a very new challenge for us, and I think really we're not setting any specific goals at this stage. It's a case of feeling and seeing how we go.
Okay. So you said about tactics. Excuse me, I'm not a sailor, so a lot of questions I might ask, you might be like, "Oh, it's very obvious," but there'll be a lot of people also listening to this who might not be obvious to. When you're planning a race, when you have tactics in mind, how often do they just kind of go off the table when you start racing?
Well, as they say, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and it is a little bit like that. You certainly have an idea in your mind as how the race will go, and you have certain things that you'll assess before the start of a race. Especially you'll try and read the course a little bit in terms of whether there's any favourable or less current or wind on the course, and obviously that will frame what you try to do. But current set tends to be pretty consistent a race, but the wind will certainly change as the race goes on, especially in some of the venues close to the shore that we sail, that the wind becomes very shifty and gusty. Obviously in match racing against one other boat, you're really just trying to make sure you get better of that than the other boat.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
More from Ian in just a moment, but I wanted to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/best. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle or MP3 player. And we're heading towards Christmas, and we all love to have a laugh in this period. We all like to hear a funny joke or something like that. And on audible.com, you can download some audiobooks from some hilarious comedians. See, even that's quite funny. Comedians. Some hilarious comedians, such as Michael McIntyre, Lee Evans, Ricky Gervais. Learn from the best. If you like comedy, they're good people to listen to. But if you just want a laugh, listen to them as well. So all you have to do, go to audibletrial.com/best, and you can hear from some great comedians, not comedians. But for now, let's get back to our interview with sailing 5-time world champion Ian Williams.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
One thing I noticed, Ian, is that you studied to be a solicitor, and if I'm right, did you work in the field for a little while before you went into sailing?
Yeah, well, I was always sailing as well, but that's right. Before I became a full time, I qualified and worked in the city of London, a firm called Ashurst. I did a year and a half after qualification there, working in commercial law, which I enjoyed. Actually, it wasn't desperate to get away from that. It was more that opportunities came up in. And it's always been a dream really for me to be a professional sportsman and later on, as a sailor. And when the opportunity came along, it was hard not to take it.
So there wasn't a moment you were in the office at 3 o'clock where you'd been in some very boring meeting and you just went, this isn't for me anymore, I've got to get out on the boat?
Yeah, well, a city law firm, when you say 3 o'clock, it's just as likely to be 3 a.m. as it is 3. But it wasn't really like that. As I say, it wasn't a case of wanting specifically to get away from what I was doing. It was more that with my sailing, I'd still taken it pretty while I was working. I was getting to a point where I couldn't really go on doing both. I was getting more responsibility at work, which meant I couldn't fly away quite so regularly to regattas. And I was also at a point with, I was in the top 10 in the match racing rankings and not able to break into the top 5. And that was something that I wanted to do. So I thought I'd give it a go full time.
Okay, fair enough. Was there anything from what you learned practicing law and working in the city, were there any transferable skills to sailing?
When I changed from a big law firm, which is about as sort of professional an approach as you can get, into the sailing world, which is I think not so in terms of the way people do things, and I like to think that I've been able to bring a little bit of that approach across, not necessarily on the water, but off the water in the way that I can plan, manage a team, go out and find sponsors or clients as a professional sailor. On that side, I think perhaps the experience of the lawyer has stood me in good stead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about managing a team and getting the finance and getting sponsorship and everything like that. With this background, do you feel you have an advantage over other teams in getting the best sponsors for your team?
Really, I think the organisational skills have been important, and it's something that's each part of my career. I've been very lucky to meet up with Andrew Pindar in 2006 and secure Pindar as a sponsor from 2003 on until the present day. Now with as well involved since 2011. So we're now Team GAC Pindar, and I've been very lucky to have them, and they've had a huge influence on my career to go out and win those World Championship titles. What
was their attraction to sailing when you pitched the idea of them coming to sponsor you?
With Pindar, they were all involved in sailing. They'd Emma Richards, now Emma Sanderson, to do a round alone race, a single-handed round the world race with Stotts. I think it was 5. So they were already involved in the sport, and I think what enter sailing is the ability. Really, you can really tailor the sponsorship and the message to what you want. Different events and different opportunities, and that can, I think, sometimes put sponsors off because it's not very neatly packaged. But it also presents, I think, a great opportunity to get from it what you want as a sponsor. And if you have that clear in your head what you do want, I think there are great opportunities out there. So for them, I think that was the big thing. And then with GAC coming on board, they're a shipping logistics company. I think they obviously they're not using sailing boats for their shipping and logistics, but they feel an affinity with the ocean, with the sea, and so in many ways, and I think a lot of the people that work there are sailors as well and boat people. And I think they felt a natural affinity with the sport and recognised the opportunities to market their brand.
You also mentioned there about managing the team itself. When you pick your team, what are the attributes you normally look for?
Well, it's quite a complicated mix. There's obviously the technical and physical side of being able to do the job, and of course always there's the personality, the mix on board. We're a 4 or 5 man team, so it's quite a small team. But when you have a small team like that, it's important that you do get on in the right way on board. From a technical perspective, I really go out and just try to make sure that I've got all the different areas of the sport covered. Sailing is, you need to have the right sort of skill sets in terms of being able to set the boat up and trim it so it goes fast. You've got to have the tactical skills to be able to read the breeze, like I talked about earlier. And then you also need the physicality to be able to get the sails in and out, up and down, as and when necessary. So really, I go out and I try and make sure I've got all those areas covered. And then really I put the people into the roles according to where their skills are. Try and make sure everybody's comfortable in their role, happy with what they're doing, and that, I believe, helps them to perform their best.
Now, we met back in the Monsoon Cup about 3 years ago, and the one thing which really amazed me was the just how physically demanding the sport can be. And the fact is that I would go to the gym early in the morning, and I would see some of the other sailors be there 6, 7 in the morning doing a full workout before even going on the water. How important is it for the modern day sailor to be in shape, and do they have a program they follow, and what do you follow?
Well, it is important, and it's one of the big challenges actually for sailors is, like you say, the guys even on a race day were in the gym in the morning, and that's because it's the sort of sport where you need to be fit to do it, but it doesn't necessarily. If you have a light wind day, you don't necessarily get that the exercise you need whilst you're competing. So you need to find time to go to training, carry out all your technical skills, or whether it's a race day, go out and do the racing. But you also do need to find time to get into the gym as well. And I think increasingly the sport is becoming more and more physical. I think with the arrival of the catamarans, they're traveling much faster, and that builds. Going to get technical now, but it builds a higher apparent wind speed on the boats, which puts more load into the sails, and as a consequence, it adds to the physicality of it. So it is very important. I have a program at home. I try and keep myself. Fortunately, as the helmsman, I don't have to pull too many ropes. So really, it's just a general fitness and running around the boat for me. But certainly for the other guys, it's a huge part of when I put a team together. I'm definitely looking at how fit and strong the guys are that I'm getting together.
And what about nutrition? What would be a typical pre-race and post-race meal for you?
Well, with sailing, I think it's actually nutrition's very important. It's quite difficult to get it right because we don't have regular start and finish times. It's not like a football match where you know exactly what time you're going to start, and you can plan exactly how long before the match you're going to take on board your food and what have you. We tend to be sailing on and off throughout maybe a whole day, and so it's really about just trying to get something in when you can. That's not gonna fill you up too much and cause you problems when you are sailing. We use nutrition bars. Get buzzing ones are great. We take them out with us. I like the banana bar especially, and that's just a great just fill up in between races. You've only got maybe 10 minutes between a race. You just need a little bit of an energy. Things like bananas work very well as well, with the potassium, and I guess the other big thing with sailing is the dehydration. When you're out on the water in the wind over a long period of time, you do get very dehydrated. So it's important to keep drinking, and we tend to use the sort of electrolyte tablets to put in our water, and just to make sure that we're absorbing as much of the fluid as possible. So it is something that we focus on quite hard, especially on a race day. And then, of course, I guess during our general diet, just making sure we're getting the right amount of protein, right amount of fat and carbohydrates to give us to keep our fitness levels up and strength levels up.
Are you allowed a cheat day?
Oh, you're allowed a cheat day. Well, there's nobody monitoring it, so I couldn't possibly tell you whether I'm having a cheat day or not. Somebody might hear.
So you're allowed to enjoy the turkey with all the trimmings next week.
Yes, I think I'll be eating the turkey, but I might be going for a run later in the day.
Okay, good work. As part of the World Match Racing Tour, you obviously travel the globe, going to many different cities. How do you cope with things like jet lag, and do you have any kind of routine? And how much used to you now are you at being in different locations?
Yeah, I think it's something that you learn how your own body adjusts, and it really depends on what time of day you fly, obviously what the time difference is. For me, I find it much easier going west. So if we go to Bermuda or to the east coast of America, 4 or 5 hours west, it's I hardly even notice the jet lag. I just wake up a little bit earlier in the morning. Even going to the west coast of America, 8 hours to the west, again, it's not really that difficult. The really tough one is when you go 8 or 9 hours to the east. So we've got that coming up when we go to Malaysia in January, and that is the hard one. I think it's just a case of what I like to do is try and land early in the morning. Normally with not much of a night's sleep, and then just try and stay awake the whole day. Maybe often we would book in some practice or something that day, so that you're absolutely exhausted by 8 or 9 p.m. and then with a bit of luck you can sleep that night. It's not too scientific, but it tends to work, and I think with us we're in some ways lucky that our events build up to the final. So as long as you are well enough rested to qualify through the early rounds, really you're looking to make sure you're fully adjusted and fully recovered from the jet lag by the end of the regatta, when it starts to get important and when the really big matches come up.
Would you touch the airline food on a journey?
Yes, I do eat airline food. Again, I think one thing with jet lag, if as soon as you get on the plane, you can adjust your watch to the new time that you're going to, and try and do as much as you can on the new time. It just gives you a jump up. And so if it's nighttime where I'm going, I would tend not to. Just try my best to sleep. If it's daytime where I'm going, if it's lunchtime where I'm going, then I'm happy to eat some food.
Tell me your emotions when you won your first world title. How did you feel?
Well, that, a little while ago now, 2007. I mean, of course, it was an incredible moment. It was something that I'd obviously hoped to do, but never knew if I would be able to achieve it or not, and so it was. I think it's the same for a lot of sportsmen. There's of course there's elation, but there's also an element of relief. I in some way I had to a little bit justify to myself and to the world the decision to give up a pretty good job as a lawyer and to go sailing, and a lot of people doubted whether that was the right decision and whether I would be able to be successful in sailing. So to go out and be able to win that world championship was yes, it was. As I say, it was very exciting, but there was also an element of relief there.
What would you say is a key bit of advice you'd give to any young sailor who wants to be the next Ian Williams, for example?
Well, I think you've got to enjoy what you're doing. I think if you're not enjoying it, then especially when you're young, then you're not going to be able to put in the hours and the time to get to the top level. And I guess that leads on to the second thing, is that really anything's possible if you're prepared to work at it and keep the right attitude. I would say that I'm not the most talented sailor. As a youth, I wasn't. I was okay, but I wasn't great. But really, it's the application that gets you there, and it's spending the time focusing on what you need to achieve and going about it in a way and in terms of really focusing on the end goal and improving your skills towards that. And if you're prepared to put in the time, a lot is possible.
And we'll wrap this up shortly, but I mentioned you as someone to get advice from. Who was it you looked up to when you got into the sport? Who was it you saw as your role model, so to speak?
Well, I don't think there was anybody especially that I went to for advice. But I guess as I was coming up through match racing, it was the likes of Russell Coutts and Peter Gilmore who were really dominating the sport. And so, for sure, you look at how those guys went about their programs and putting their team together and how they sailed and all those elements, and you try to take out of them as much as you can the bits that you think that will help you. Honestly, there are areas where I thought that how they approached it wouldn't suit me, so you have to bring your own style to things as well. But for sure, you can look at what the top guys are doing and certainly copy them as much as possible.
Ian, just before we go, why don't you tell our listeners how they can interact with you, be it on social media, how they can follow the team, how they can follow World Match Racing Tour?
Yeah, well, I guess the first place to start is the World Match Racing Tour website, wmrt.com. You can follow me on my Twitter, which is Williams_racing. We got our final event coming up to the last week in January, so that's going to be where the World Championship is decided, and it's going to be very exciting. There's 3 teams in with a hunt of winning still. That's us. There's a team from the US Virgin Islands, skippered by Taylor Canfield, and a Swedish team skippered by Bjorn Hansen. So it's going to be a really exciting event, and we've got our fingers crossed that we can have the bit of luck that we need to come out on top.
And that would be your 6th world title, correct?
It would, yes.
Unprecedented.
Yes, we actually have the record when we went to 5 at the start of this year. Peter Gilmore has 4, and then there's a few guys on 3: Russell Coutts, Chris Dixon, and Ed Baird. But I don't think any of those guys are coming back. So on 5, we've got the title for a little while, and if we can extend the run, that would be fantastic.
And one thing just before we go, I noticed for next season, am I right? There's going to be an all-female racing team. Do you think they could be getting on the podium?
Yeah, that's interesting. I just only saw that this morning, so I haven't put a lot of thought into it. But I do know Sally, and I know some of her team members, and for sure they'll be strong. In sailing, we often sail with a weight limit, and rather than a number of people. So whereas with the men's team, we'll be sailing 4 up, I suspect they will have 5 on the boat. So that will allow them to overcome some of the physical disadvantages they have with the extra person. So there's no reason why they can't go out and get on the podium. It'll be exciting to sail against them.
Yeah, well, we'll have to stay across that, and we'll stay across the World Match Racing Tour website, your Twitter, and everything like that. Ian, I really appreciate your time. Ian Williams, thank you for being the best in the world.
Thank you, Richard.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Episode 8, Best in the World podcast. Tick the box. It is done. But I don't want to upset you too much, but I'm afraid that's our last episode of 2015. I'm sorry to say that. We're going to take a little break over the New Year period, but we will be back bigger and better than ever in 2016. We'll be back the second week of January. So make sure you stay subscribed to The Best in the World. Download, subscribe, rate, review, tell your friends, say listen to the Best in the World podcast, and we'll have more world and Olympic and Paralympic champions where we can learn the best from them. If you have any guests in particular you'd like to hear from, maybe send me a tweet or send me a message through the website. And if you have any questions or any topics you'd like us to cover on the Best in the World, let me know that as well. All you have to do is go to my Twitter page, that's at Richard_Parr, or head to the website richardparr.net. Lots of ways to get in touch. There's also my Facebook page, that's Best in the World with Richard Parr, where you'll be able to get updates and information and new blog posts and all the information you need about the best in the world. So I hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve and the next couple of weeks, and I'll see you back in January.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.